Very cool. Thank you, by the way, for reaching out to me through Doug. I do appreciate that a great deal. So, um,
Sure.
anyway, I was able to look through. I think I got about half of your book digested
Mm-hmm.
for the collection. So
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I didn't know how you would like to start off. Right, I didn't realize that you're about to start off on a tour. We can talk about that too as well. Right, but.
Sure.
I suppose one possible point of departure, one thing that sort of struck me was actually a lot of the stuff in the middle. We were talking about being a
Mm-hmm.
broke ass writer, and there's
Right.
a lot of mundane material in there, or seemingly mundane material. But it struck me that just looking a little more deeply into it, those sort of everyday things actually open up to consideration of like unique things in our own sort of cultural situation right now. Like one thing you noted was that people have a difficulty washing their own dishes, and that this
Mm-hmm.
is like a way of he can pick up some extra money on the side doing this sort of like domestic tasks, or making one's bed and so forth and all that. And you think, well, what is happening that people apparently I mean, there's different ways you can look at it. A few different trajectories are coming into play there, right? Like, is this something novel, or have people always been kind of lassitudinous with respect to those sorts of um, activities, or is the growing lassitude around like your own sort of personal environment a function of other things going on in our culture? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Or I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm
Um,
just going off of
it's a
feeling.
great question. No, it's a great. I think about it all the time because I've been living in artist homes and communities and spaces since I was 16. So that's about 13 or 14 years now. And I do think that it is a cultural. I think it's a new cultural phenomenon. I come from a Southern family. Um, I think, and I will say this: I am all about gender equality. I am all about um, um, being your own person. But I was just raised in a clean home. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, and as a Southern woman, you take pride in your home. And as a woman in general, as a man, I think everybody should take pride in their home. But it's been very surreal for me to see um, young women my age um, not not taking pride in where they live. Um, so it's a good hustle, absolutely. And then there are also the upper middle class and the upper class where sometimes their homes are just too large to maintain. So that's like that's a good deal. Yeah, I think it's a millennial thing. It shocks me because I know that my mother would cringe me at 29, 30 years old and she walk into my home and it's disheveled. I don't know what in our cultural American tradition has changed from our parents being very strict about chores. I know how to wash clothes. I know how to grocery shop. I know how to, make a bed. I know how to sweep and clean. And I think it hit me about 25. It was just a natural, I was pretty junky when I was younger, but at about 25, it just kind of snapped in. And I was like, this is, first of all, it's a blessing to have a roof over my head in general, especially if you're a broke ass writer and a traveler and an artist and a vagabond, which I have been. I have to travel for my job. I have to travel for my living. Um, with that said, I have, since I've written that book, seen the value in it. I have recently started working in private schools. And when I was in San Francisco, I cart back and forth from the east to the west coast. I nannied 3 children for a year. So nannying three children and working in nonprofits like Girls Rock, and working with Kids Rock and all, and working with young children in nonprofit organizations, and having that training as a nanny, I've been able to obtain work as a teacher and as an after school teacher and as an assistant without certification, because I have that experience. So I've seen how using those practical steps as a younger person, or even as an adult, but it's probably better for people in their early to mid 20s, to get those years of training of learning how to obtain housing quickly, learning how to cook and clean, learning how to cook and clean on a budget, learning how to take care of dogs and cats. When you're in New York and San Francisco, you can get paid 80 to $150 a day for dog and cat sitting and stay in a nice flat for free. Um, I managed an apartment on 72nd and Columbus in New York City. Um, and it was a bed and breakfast. Just a gentleman from Toronto had this space, and he would rent it out, and he had a schedule and everything, and I would maintain it. But I got to stay there for a month for free. You know what I mean? Like, it was an open space, and I maintained. So it's like, these, and I so I've been able to live very well by being smart and helpful to other people. I've never had to live in a dangerous neighborhood, because I found ways to live in Central Park West for a while. You know what I mean? And in San Francisco, because I had um, a good attitude. Later on in life, you grow more mature. But I had a good attitude, and I had savvy and domestic skills.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we could take away from what you're saying there, in terms of going into other topics.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think is notable, in that you have a juxtaposition between, being a vagabond and still being able to situate yourself in relatively positive places, clean, safe
Mm-hmm.
spaces. What I would say is that that's a testament. For one thing, it's going to be a testament to your own acuity and your positive attitude. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's also a testament to how human relationship can go a long way. Um, it's kind of ironic because what put you in that situation was your capacity in part to be able to earn money from it. But it
Mm-hmm.
seems it also points to an ability to relate with people outside of a completely sort of monetized framework, because it couldn't just be money which enabled you to do that. People had to trust you in a way which is sort of outside of the boundaries of what can be achieved
Mm-hmm.
through simply a financial transaction. And so I think that there's a lot, that the fact that you've been able to
That's an excellent point.
work.
Love and kindness is very important to me. Um, People do trust me. Um, but I've had to, over the years, express my morals and my beliefs in my career, in on public platforms. I'm also that type of person. If you give me a $20 bill, I'll have it back to you in a day and a half. You know what I mean? But I've had to do that. And when you walk into a friend's home or something, and you need something, or you're crashing, you're on tour or whatever, and you do clean the house from top to bottom, or you're a new roommate or something, that's a testament to your stability, and yeah, and your attitude. I've learned to be very private. I've learned to be very quiet. I've learned to stay out of the way. I think that, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit more on kindness, but I do think that when you reveal too much about yourself at times, our American culture is a very snap, quick judgment um, button that we have innately. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We're pretty analytical. We're an intelligent culture on some levels. Um, but yeah, I realized um, being irresponsible doesn't get you anywhere. I may be a little bit more boring than I used to be, but going out every night and drinking and being late and stumbling in and having people over at certain hours, blaring music, being dirty, being inconsiderate of people's boundaries, spaces, and belongings, which a lot of people do in common homes, which is surprising because we should learn how to get along with each other as people. But I've seen what not to do, which is why, and I've done certain things of what not to do as a young person, which is why How to Survive as a broadcast writer shows it is a testament because I'm still surviving to this day at the moment. As a broadcast writer, I'm going on tour. You know what I mean? And
You're,
I'm
you're doing a
scraping.
bit. You're actually more than surviving, right? Because if you're just surviving, you wouldn't be going on tour. So, well, I don't know.
I get I'm I'm at a great place in my career. I've always had a great career, even from the day it started. I've always had a great public, artistic, creative career. People, um, I started out as a model and an art curator in the Denver Arts District as a young lady. And I interned at a high-end gallery called Space Gallery. Hi, Michael, my old boss. And I was the youngest to run a couple of galleries in the art district, and it was really. And if you read I don't know if I go into it in the book. Maybe I'll go
Uh,
into it in the next
you
one.
mentioned you mentioned that, but you didn't elaborate it. At least not in the portion which I read. But you talked briefly about how that was sort of one of the first things you could do without
Mm.
like an official certification,
Degree, right, right,
and you're relatively young at that time, which also
right,
sort of put a certain light on it, if I
right.
recall correctly.
Which brings the word survival, into it. I think as an artist, you have to be a survivor. I am a full-time professional artist. So even when I'm working in private schools, I'm working at an arts school, I'm working at a multilingual based private elementary school where I'm teaching, where I'm doing a book club and teaching creative writing. So everything I get to do 90% of the time in regards to jobs are based in the arts, which is a blessing.
So
Um,
let me ask you two questions then. Uh,
sure.
the, well, um, well, one of them I'm going to bracket one. So let me just ask one question to
Okay.
begin, and that is, as you bring up this notion of professional, like, do you
Mm.
feel a tension between being an artist or a musician on one hand and a professional on the other? Or if there, or is there, do you feel a tension there, or do you
There's a
feel that there's,
serious tension, a
do
deep,
you, yeah, so go ahead and
intense. There's a
elaborate.
deep, intense tension. Right now, I was sitting here saying an inner lament, request, prayer, whatever you can say in my mind. I was just saying, I wish I had an hour to do something creative. On this tour, I booked every show. Yesterday I was hoping to get a day off. I need to sleep. I need to rest, and I wanted to write. So I go, to the coffee shop, and I've got, all my poetry books and my novel, the things that I've been wanting to read, and my two journals, and I had, this stack of stuff for me to just dig in. I was lucky enough to be able to listen to Saul Williams' album. I'm supposed to review it and transcribe an interview with him, and I got distracted because I ended up having to call all the bookstores to make sure that the books were in. Um, San Francisco doesn't have the books in yet, so I had to call the actual buyer, and I had been in contact with three or four other people beforehand. I had to email my publicist. My publisher. I'm arranging an event in Los Angeles where it's not a bookstore. It's in a private in my friend's private home. She's a curator, a gallery curator. She said, "Why don't you have the event in your home?" So I have to. So it's a private event, so I have to make sure I get the address, and now I have to find a way to take books. I don't have books on me on hand because I had 6 complimentary free books and I gave them away to my friends and family, and I have one for my freaking readings that I have my notes in. So I had to make the decision with $159 in my account to walk over to the counter at Red Emma's in Baltimore and pay $107 for 6 books to take on the road. Okay, these are executive decisions. When I was booking the tour with my publicist, we almost canceled San Francisco because it was too expensive, and I had to sit and make executive decisions. We almost didn't go, and I have to make those. We're going to have to cancel if we don't. If we can't do it, then we can't go. We'll make it up, and we'll go to Austin and Vegas and go in the summer. But I have to make serious business decisions. I have to book meetings. I have to have my publishers in Portland, so we're gonna sit down. Doug, you know Doug. So
Yeah.
we're gonna sit down and have lunch and figure out things about work and also have fun and party. But there are things that we have to do. I booked him for a reader at in other words, which I think will be hilarious, him going into a feminist bookstore and mansplaining everybody. I just think that'd be so funny. But you know what I mean? I booked all the readers, I booked all the events, I am managing the number of books. I know every book that we've sold. I know, you know what I'm saying? And all
It's
I want to, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go get. I did
I
finish
guess
your.
the end of it is the tension is all I want to do. I have 3 more books in the works and a fiction one that I'm dying to write. I want to write in a journal. I want to have a day to just read and write,
Right.
which I haven't
Well,
had in a few days, in a few weeks. So that's the literal tension. Yeah.
I mean, I think that so the question this wasn't the second question. I still have that other question bracketed,
Sure.
but growing out of what you're saying, then like this tension, um, do you think that this is something which is intrinsic to the life of the artist, or do you believe it's possible for society to configure itself in a way where one can pursue a creative vocation without being subjected to these sorts of stressors that you're outlining? All these are kind of in part, it's like there's a certain modicum of uh, logistical tension, which is going to be inevitable. But I mean, I think it's like extraordinary that you have to buy your own books. You're the author of
Hmm.
the books, and
Hmm.
yet you have to spend over or approximately 2/3 of your your checking account just to be able to go ahead and facilitate their own dissemination. It's
Welcome to
that's
being an independent artist.
so
You
I
know,
mean,
I'm an independent artist. I don't have a management firm behind me. I don't have, I'm not working with Simon and Schuster. I'm working with a tiny Marxist leftist um, bookstore and a book publisher. And Doug and I are going to talk. I don't think there's anything negative. I mean, I went with Zero Books because I like them and they allow me to be a woman and they allow me to be smart. Some people call me, I guess Mark Fritz in the forward called me freakishly smart. I am, and it threatens a lot of people. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm a black woman, so they,
yeah.
I'm,
So
so that I have that freedom now. Let's get to the logistics. No, it's not intrinsic. I'm a businesswoman, and I went to a new media university. I didn't finish, but I went for entertainment business. And I started my educational career in mass communications at 10 years old at a magnet school. So I was doing television and radio. I'm dating myself, but we were doing VHS editing, and we mini DV had just came out, and the first Apple, what were those little, the first little Apple Mac, little
Oh,
MacBooks called? They were these little green tiny, but yeah, I'm dating myself. People are like, oh my god, you're old. But um,
no,
uh,
no,
well, this was before Final Cut and everything like that.
right.
But yeah, by the time I was 17, I was working at a little newspaper, helping design on Adobe. You know what I mean? So I'm very young. I'm 29. I'll be 30 in October. But I'm mid career because I have about. Ooh, do you hear that? Somebody's calling me on my Google. It's my dad. I'm gonna shut it down here.
Right.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. So,
Um,
well,
so yeah, there. Welcome to being an independent artist. A lot of artists, you know why a lot of artists don't, a lot of independent artists, first of all, don't make it to that corporate money where they are signing to Simon and Schuster or Arista Records or all those things, because they didn't learn the ropes, or they didn't have a strong manager, or they didn't have, the business acumen to be able to earn that. I said when I got this opportunity, I'm going to sell books. Now, I could have gotten this opportunity and said, hey, I have a book out, and not gone on tour. I have a total choice not to do anything. And Zero Books would have been cool, and they would have pumped it, and we would have done little things. But I don't have to work this hard at all. I could probably work 5% of what I'm doing now and still be considered successful because I got a book deal at 28 years old. That's pretty
so,
intense. Yeah.
so in part, it's a
It's a
personal thing.
personal. It's a personal. I don't like the word ambition. Um, I don't think I'm ambitious. I just want to do things well. Do you know what I'm saying? And that comes to the cooking and the cleaning and the
Right.
domestic. I got an opportunity, so why would I shit it away? That's just that is, so it's not ambition to me. It's just like this logic of like, this company gave me this opportunity and they're going to spend money to print these books out. I should probably sell some. You know what I
So,
mean?
yes, I do. It reminds me the sort of themes that on which we've touched so far actually reminds me of a Zen story or Zen koan, where the student goes to the master and asks, what is the secret to enlightenment or something to that effect, like in all good Zen stories. And then the master says, "Did you have breakfast this morning?" And the monk says, "Yes." And he's like, "Go wash your bowl." And you're like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
what does that have to do with enlightenment?" It means
Mm-hmm.
you do like what's right in front of you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna sort of analyze the notion of ambition. Maybe you want to distance yourself from the concept of ambition because you don't feel like the energy that you're putting forth is actually connected to some sort of uh, egocentric project of self-aggrandization or something like that, but rather you're just responding to a scenario where some people have given you help and you want to reciprocate by investing yourself in the mutual project of publishing and disseminating your book.
When
Is
somebody
that
recognizes that you have a gift, and also I forgot to say this in my last answer, but I have readers who like what I do, and I want to connect with the people who read my work. I mean, I've written in several different publications, and people follow what I do. And I want to go around the country and give them an opportunity to say hi and to give a, so yeah, I mean, I respect what's happening to me. I'm not disconnected with the fact that human beings believe in what I do and they like it. And so therefore I want to say hi and I want to say thank you and I want to connect with the people that appreciate what I'm doing. It's I'm giving this energy and people are saying we like it. That's freaking awesome. So you know what I mean? So there are many levels to it, but Um, to have an ego, I'm first of all, I'm incredibly private. You know.
Right. I wasn't saying. I just want
Yeah.
to be clear
No,
that.
that's great.
Oh,
No, it's
okay.
it's true though. You know what I mean? Some people are,
All right.
you
So
know,
I didn't want to be misconstrued. So but go ahead. Please
that's
continue.
cool. I mean, that's about it. But I'm very private, and some people, do go on. And by the way, I work with celebrities for a living, so I do understand that world of Hollywood, and the music industry and the film and television industry on a very close, intimate level. I do see how it affects people's lives, how fame affects people's lives, and how it affects their minds. And we're watching Kanye call his friend Taylor Swift a bitch and say, we're probably going to have sex because I made that bitch famous. That's your friend, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not afraid to say that because I am an entertainment journalist and I have an opinion, and I think that that's incredibly mean and tacky. And when I see people do that, that teaches me how not to act. Why would you humiliate your friend in public in that manner?
Right.
That's mean, and I don't ever want to be that type of public figure. You know.
It seems unlikely that you would develop in that way. But I mean, that's
I
what
have to
I
work at
mean.
it. I have to work tonight, though. I have to work to not be an asshole. Everybody, every day we have choices. And I remember, I was kind of dealing with this bully very recently. And, I had this conversation with a mutual friend of ours, and she said, well, she, wouldn't you, she asked me if I would act the way that she would act. And I said, no, I wouldn't. And I actually knew for a fact that I wouldn't act that way because I had just been in a similar situation that she and I were in this conflict. I said, no, I wouldn't. And she said, okay. People were trying to mansplain her side of it. I said, okay. But she said something very interesting. She said, yeah, but you make that choice to not hurt other people when you're hurt. That's a natural instinct that we have when we're angry, when our hearts are broken. We want to do what we can to hurt that person that has hurt us. And it takes a lot of zen and patience and compassion to live in an artistic circle in an industry that's pretty cutthroat.
I mean, well, I write on. I just there's a lot to be. I mean, like where I'm tempted to go then is say, well, why is I see because I would resist the notion
Mhm,
that that kind of behavior is
mhm.
an expression of some sort of intrinsic nature. I think that it's broadly a consequence of how we are conditioned, how we formulate our identities, and that also involves like deep levels of choice.
And
Um,
we've spoken on that on a larger level. Was it racism? Was it a systemic jealousy? Was it a fight? Because I am. We have a mutual friend that she wants more attention from. But yeah, we did, of course, as intelligent adults, analyze why she was making those choices. You know, and I got a few answers. Um,
there is still, of course, the final denominator is the individual. I mean,
Absolutely,
you can
absolutely,
see how certain larger social
absolutely,
forces were affecting her in this circumstance, but then you know what's going on with her individually is ultimately almost mysterious, right? And that's true of all of us.
right.
What's going on?
And I certainly made the choice to forgive her. It took a while, and I'm still meditating, and there's still like a slight bit of anxiety within me right now, but it's not as heavy as it was before. And every day I have to allow time to chip it away, and then also lay a cement foundation of forgiveness and patience over it. You know what I mean? And it's discipline. It's not, you know, you were saying that you don't know if it's very intrinsic for people to be hurtful. I don't know. Some people say that innately everyone is good. Some people say innately everyone is bad. But the Buddhist monk, oh, I can't pronounce his name, but he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King.
Thich
And
Nhat Hanh.
yeah,
It's Thich Nhat Hanh.
he was just saying that there's a balance of bad and good, and we have both of those things within us, and nothing, and neither of them are right or wrong, which is another reason why I can kind of flow through life pretty easily, because I'm pretty like, which is the Tao, you know, you stay between good and bad and right and wrong, you just kind of stay in the middle. Um, I try to do that. I try not to. Of course, I'm a dramatic lady. I'm an artist, but but within on my root cause, I'm pretty much just like, well, shit. You know, and it's going to be this way or it's not going to be this way. So I have the choice to either love this person and forgive this person, and also trust that life's going to work it out. Like, you can't always control, you can't always make things happen. Time is the great denominator, I think. You know.
Your remarks there remind me of a comment in your book about how you feel that, in virtue of your commitment to authenticity, that your presence can sometimes be construed as heavy in terms of
Mm.
like its energetic output.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just don't. I don't know actually the exact question that I was going to ask in reference to that, but it was a comment which I thought was a
Yeah.
deserving of reflection, because there's almost like a phobia of deep conflict in our culture. There's a
Mm.
proliferation of superficial conflict
Mm.
and pettiness, but there's a resistance to looking maybe at maybe deep conflict's not the best word, but it's sort of like
No, that's great.
maybe
It's true.
deeper tensions, right? And so when a person does commit to being like real,
Mm.
if you will, um, it, there's at least the perception that they're risking a kind of assuming a certain social cost for
Sure,
that
sure.
commitment.
I
So
risk.
like so why do you think that is? Do you think that a culture can be formulated to make that less problematic? I mean, to be authentic, or
Let's. Well, personally, I am kind of a loner anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And my relationships are very potent and beautiful when people actually do choose to get close to me and I to them. Now, if you asked a question on a broader level, I you know
and actually, I'm sorry,
go
it,
ahead.
it just as you, it sort of connects back to something else you said a little bit ago about how you really just there's a problem with just sort of putting your cards on the table from the beginning, right? That like
Yeah,
if you just say, "Here I am," and
right.
you allow too much information to unfold, that's going to result in
Push someone
quick,
away.
quick alienation. Uh,
Sometimes it depends on who you are. Sometimes, I mean, the arts community is a pretty good place to be able to put your cards on the table. I was saying that when I curate shows, I've been curating shows for over 10 years, and I've had several situations where, one time I was at DNA Lounge, just kind of like rave metal club, and they called me in to kind of bring the indie rock kids and stuff like that. And this one kid pulled down his pants and pulled out his little wiener, and I mean, he was a young kid, and it was more comical, you know, than anything. So I'm outside hanging out with my friends, and someone calls me in as the manager and the curator of the show. You know, he's pulled down his pants. You know, and I go in like, I missed it, do it again, you know. But of course, the club was mad, you know, very mad at me. You know what I mean? But those are the moments that I love. Those are the moments that are spontaneous. So I've seen blood, I've seen nudity, I've seen. I broke my toe in a mosh pit just in October. I've seen chaos. I've seen, you know, all types of stuff. So when artists kind of get down on each other for being like intense, it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black. And so, you know, in certain communities, it's, you know, but that's why, you know, we call it a community, because no matter how much you call a pot black, you know you're black, so which is why you're going to continue to be in that same club together, in that same venue together. You're going to continue to go to the same events. So I don't know if I'm making sense. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, you find your world and you find your circle, but even if you don't, intensity, I've been emotion shamed recently. Um and I don't see anything. I have the bravery to understand that I'm not perfect and I never will be, and I love myself exactly the way I am. So, and also we have to understand that systemically, when people accuse others of being emotional or being vulnerable or being weak, or being expressive, that is just a way to minimize their personal fear of being honest with themselves and showing their sadness. I feel bad for the people who insult me because I feel like they're in a worse prison than I am. Does that make sense?
Well,
When
yes, it does.
you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
because
If
I
you
mean,
know,
so Marshall. I just heard this the other day. Marshall Rosenberg, who's um, considered one of the real sort of fountainheads of nonviolent communication. The way
mm,
he described violence, violence is the tragic expression of an unmet need. So when
mm,
people, you know, are lashing out, it's helpful to remember that movement is an expression of some, you know, perhaps not consciously experienced, but some sort of deficiency in their own world, in their own
sure,
sort of
sure,
subjective
sure.
reality. And that, even just intellectually, that awareness goes a long way to giving us equanimity in otherwise difficult um, circumstances. So yes, what you're saying is perfectly coherent.
Well, with that said, and we can move on to another question in a minute. With that said, I did explore that criticism though. My older brother comes into town every couple of years from the Air Force, and he had said he'd gotten overwhelmed by me. We were talking about something. He said, "You know, you're emotionally demanding. You're a heavy person." And then just last 2 nights ago, he had said the same thing. And and in my head, I was like, "Oh, you're too late," because I've already been exploring this, and I've been working really hard. I've been meditating. I kind of distanced myself. I've been working. I've been doing inner work. I've been Reiki, all types of things, and really going, you know, inside in a holistic manner when an analyst did not work. And I, I had um, talked to a psychic a couple of days ago, She said something random. I'm about to go on tour when she said something very well. It wasn't random. She said, "I want you to do me a favor. I want you to check your thyroid." She said, "I want you to check your thyroid, and I also want you to check your blood sugar because a lot of um, some of the things that you are feeling may be due to an imbalance of your thyroid." She said, "Did you have you called your mother?" And my mother did have I knew my mother had the problem. She didn't. I didn't tell her that. You know what I mean? Talked to my mother. She said yes. It affects your emotions and things like. So I've had to backtrack actually to someone that I truly care for, who has been there for me, and it's really just been between he and I. I don't feel like I've had to really apologize to anyone else, frankly. But just because he was very in close proximity, and I've been expressing those steps. You know what I mean? And so I think man, I just try to be really active. I try to be really active when I do connect with people. And so if somebody's saying, "Hey, you're this is going on," um, I take it as a non-violent observation, even if somebody's trying to use it as a leverage to hurt me. Do you know what I'm
Whether
saying? That's
yeah,
not my problem. Why they're using it. You know what
right.
I'm
Yeah,
saying?
what you're capable of doing is sifting the wheat from the chaff, as they say. You're able to ex- abst- abstract something positive from a potentially negative encounter. So if someone is attacking you with criticism, you can still take the criticism and set it aside and consider it sort of stoically or objectively and employ it to your own betterment without in the same moment deferring to the logic of attack, right? So there's a separation going on there, which is, again, that's perfectly coherent. So
Hmm.
is that what you mean? My my my
Well, if you're going to be a public figure, you can't be afraid of people. You know
right.
what I'm saying? And even if I am afraid of people, like I have to get over it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's definitely what I'm saying. And and there's this rule that floats around every day to us American Western adults that we hear probably almost every day in our news feed, in our memes, on Oprah, on the OWN channel, to in order to love and serve people, if that is your goal, you have to love yourself. And I believe that, public figures are public servants, whether we're entertainers or artists or politicians. You've got to love yourself. And maybe not, and work on yourself. And I think that,
I mean, I would agree, and I would
sure.
I would just say that that's actually sort of related to solidarity, like to love other people. If you're going to love other people, that entails. Oh wait, this is just what you just said, right? But
Hmm.
that entails loving yourself as an expression of you know, because if you don't love yourself, you're not going to be in a space where you're actually capable of effectively serving, right?
Or
So,
you make people
or
feel like shit. You know what I mean? And you're going out and you're spewing this negative energy, and you're spewing. That's why we have people who spew hate speech, and affect the masses with anger and hate. If you have enough wherewithal within you, you choose what you are omitting to people. Now we're getting a little esoteric with energy and things like that. We don't have to get too deep into that. But I mean, even just the stuff that comes out of your mouth. What Kanye is teaching men that they can talk about women that they act like they respect. Well, actually, Kanye never respected Taylor Swift because he went up and interrupted her at the Grammy. So that should have been a red flag for her to stay away from him because he never treated. But that's I'm not criticizing her. She just tried to, just tried to deal with a
so
colleague. You know what I mean?
I
Like your
mean,
colleague, you're in the same circle. Um,
but
but
the thing that it makes,
he's teaching men, to be able to, you know what I mean, to treat women that way, which is not helping
right? I mean,
our culture at all.
his behavior is obviously atrocious. I mean, the thing is, you know, on the brighter side, I mean, who I don't know. It's like I look at like that sort of behavior, and I'm like, well, who takes that person seriously anyway?
A
Like, who
lot of
takes?
people.
I mean, the fact that they take him seriously, what does that say?
What does that say about
Because
our culture?
I mean, he's I don't know him personally, obviously, right? And so when you meet a person in the concrete, sometimes things change. You don't know to what extent his behavior itself is a performance. Uh, so making that acknowledgement that whoever this human being actually is remains sort of outside of my capacity to really know. The fact that his behavior is taken seriously suggests that I mean, I why would someone take someone
Because
like that seriously?
we live in a patriarchal dominated culture. We live in a culture where it is admirable for a man, for a black man to demean women. That's what rappers are known to do in this day and age. It's admirable to, in the rap culture, to talk about doing drugs, selling drugs, raping and beating women, calling them bitches and whores, even the mother of their children. And it's cool. Um,
So this actually connects to what
it's
we're just
real
talking about, though, about unmet needs, right? So why is it that there is a resonance with that kind of uh, hideous talk? Okay,
Mhm.
why do at least
Because there is a systemic history when Africans were brought over to this country, we were beaten and raped and told that we were nothing. And so we have, and this is African Americans, so we have a self hatred. And we have a self hatred that has been taught and beaten into us over hundreds of years. And we talk check out Chelsea Handler's documentary series on Netflix. She does one on race, and she's talking to Al Sharpton, and Al Sharpton goes back and talks about his last name Sharpton and how it's a white family and how they own slaves, and and all of those things. And he says, whenever I use my name, I know that it's not my name. I'll be very honest with you. I didn't drop my last name for that reason, but I crafted my own. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why. Why why are women paid? What is it, 7 cents to the dollar or whatever? Why? I'm sounding very unintelligent. I should know my numbers and rhetoric off the top of my head. So forgive
right?
me, feminist community. But why? Well, look at history. You know, I had to teach myself to love myself. And frankly, when I grew up and I looked in the mirror and everybody called me ugly, I just didn't see it. I think I'm just blessed. I think I'm just lucky because I would just look in the mirror and I'd be picked on in school and be like, oh, I don't get what they're saying. That is an intrinsic, like, that is just being born lucky that I didn't buy into it. And I've done full shows on me not buying into the system of thought that goes on in our culture. Um, and that's why I got a book deal. I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? I,
Well,
I
yeah.
go ahead. Go
No, I
ahead.
mean it's positive. There's also an expression of some lineage, right? Like you were
Hmm.
saying, you have a sense of connection with an identity
Hmm.
as a southern woman,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so there's a kind of like participation in tradition there, which
Hmm.
probably sort of gives you a certain strength above and beyond an intrinsic capacity to resist such deceptions as will be foisted upon you. So, but
Maybe.
I don't know. I brought
Well,
up the point where I just in connection with the whole idea of having a historical consciousness
sure, sure. I
emerges.
do hold on to my lineage, and I think it's hard for young people my age. It's not cool anymore to be like, I'm a woman and I want to take care of my home. Now, I'm not married, I don't have children, but I do take on, I choose to take on a cisgender cultural idealism sometimes, and I am okay with that. And I'm not. This is why, and I think this is why I get along in the feminist culture. I get along with all cultures because I just don't lie about things. There are times where and I also spend time with men who are feminists who challenge me. So I'll have a friend and we'll be sitting on the floor and he'll stand up first and I'll put my hand out and expect him to help me up, and I'm like, we're equal. I'm not going to help you out. You know what I mean? I do like to have the door open for me. I think that's a privilege as a lady in this culture. I do, appreciate, because this is such a patriarchal, intensely tough culture on women. I appreciate when men open the door for me because it's the last morsel of respect that we get. Does that make sense? And and,
Yeah, no,
and
it makes sense.
a lot of feminist women are like, "Don't open the door for me. I don't want you to do that stuff." And I'm just like, "Hey, baby, I do.
Well,
it's the last morsel of courteousness.
right.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot going on there. It's like for you could
I'll
just
probably get in trouble for saying all of that. I'm sure, like,
well,
somebody's gonna
I
be like, "Fuck that."
no, I don't think so. I mean, you could just sort of look at the notion of courtesy itself, and that you know, the ideal of being courteous is one which can sort of typify the idea of just respect in human relationship,
Mm.
and for various reasons, that sort of thing has been eroded, in my view, of
Hmm.
late. But then, that's just abstracting from the gender issues. I think that what you're pointing to is, you often hear the notion of the double standard, and it's
Hmm.
applied slightly differently than how I think I'm about to gloss it, but they're not inconsistent. Um, so men have the benefit of having a certain figure of masculinity available to them as a
Hmm.
model. It's a deeply problematic one, but it's there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, in the wake of uh, the emergence of feminism through the course of the 20th century, perhaps what happens is in the space of emancipation, all of a sudden, women no longer have the older model or frame that will be the counterpart to the masculine. And in that vacuum, uh, they sort of almost latch on to aspects of the old sort of masculine paradigm to fill the void. And I think that could be uh, unfortunate because it almost negates the feminine itself as something which is a positive, a concrete reality, not just an utter construction. And also, perhaps, I don't know, I'm just thinking here out loud.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, you have the additional consideration that uh, there could be perhaps this is the sort of thing that for which one might be taken to task. You can look at the older framings of the feminine, and you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Perhaps there's aspects or dimensions of traditional narratives around femininity which can be preserved without betraying the ideals of feminist emancipation. I guess that there you
I
go.
try to live that every single day. I'm gonna move in a couple of. I'm gonna move in the same direction, but I'm gonna break that down a little bit. Um, I People call me out for being contradictory. Um, I just consider myself to be complex. I also consider myself to be free. So I don't. I am not a traditional feminist. I'm very aware of that. My view of the feminine and feminism is basically wanting equality in our patriarchal culture. We don't want a patriarchal culture, we want an equal culture. So that is the root that I believe everyone should agree on if they don't in regards to feminism. My take on feminism, my personal take, is that I think women should learn to be kind to one another, to support one another, and to build one another up uh, in regards to profession, in regards to supporting love relationships and life changes and choices, physical, emotional, and spiritual. I'm going to go more into that in a second. Um, I also feel that here's criticism on feminism. I feel that we are looking too much at what men are doing and trying to compete, when I don't think we should be competing with men because they're completely different beings. You are a completely different being. We are physiologically different. We think differently. It's all this. We all study. It's all in studies, right? So we shouldn't be competing with men for doing the things that they do their way. We should be cultivating what we do and how we do it, and building a strength in our. This is, I've never said this before, so I may say something totally different a few weeks or a year down the line. But cultivating something in our feminine system. We are disseminated, and we are divided and conquered, which is why we have all of these television shows of women going on TV to just be hateful to one another. You see all the housewives. You see all of these reality television shows, and soap operas. It's from telenovelas. It's from the beginning of television.
Hmm.
Maybe not when we had Jan Cleaver, but you always have that femme fatale. Now you turn on the TV and every single woman is a femme fatale. They're all femme fatales. The whole show is like, here's a show of crazy, imbalanced, mean women who can't get along with each other, and all they do is criticize and fight. And are fighting over emotional and professional territory. Why are we fighting one another? And that, so my older brother came, and I wish I would have had more time because he said something very profound to me about men. We were talking about dating a little bit, and he said, I said, well, I'm a strong, independent, young woman, and I talked about how Chelsea Handler's father said, you don't marry an ambitious woman. And my brother said, well, he said, yeah, well, that's kind of true. I don't believe if that's kind of true. I said, why? He said, because that is a way for men to stay in power. They want subservient women. He said it very clear to his little sister. These are the things that your big brother should say to you. You know what I mean? And he said, no, it's age old. Men want subservient women, to
Well,
be able to conquer and have a source of power. It's very innate, though. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I'm going to push back a little there.
Okay.
I don't think it's innate. I I don't.
What do you think the
I
root of it is?
well, in part, I think it has to do with uh, that. Well, first of all, I just to state my position. Um, I don't. I'm not interested in a subservient woman, right? Frankly, like experience of subservience. It's frightening to me when I see someone exhibit undue deference, or whether that be a man or a woman, right? So, like personally, as I guess as a man, right? I just that just doesn't work for me. So
I know a
it's
lot of men who love intelligent women, by the way, who prefer intelligent, strong women, by the way. This is
right.
just kind of, we're talking about the majority and kind of patriarchy, but please.
Okay. So granting that point, right? That there's still there are I mean you can't deny that there are apparently men who have some sort of attraction to subservient, and I sort of folk psychological, but I think it's fundamentally an expression of insecurity. And the root of that
Absolutely.
insecurity can like derive from various
Well, it's
lines,
also a
but
it's also a systemic patriarchal, idealism. I mean, set from the Bible, set from the beginning of time. Women are still being bought and sold today. 9-year-old girls in Yemen are being married off to 16-year-old, 60-year-old men, and they are being raped and killed because their insides are not developed enough to make love. These are the things that did you see the opening of my book when I write, this is for my dedication, this is for all the little girls in the world who go seemingly ignored. I am living strongly for those girls because our American culture doesn't realize that right now today young girls are being bought and sold for goats and for money and for land. They're also having their clitorises cut off with no anesthesia, and they're being held down by men and sewn up with no anesthesia. Okay, do you understand? So,
yes, I mean
so when people give me shit, these are the things that they keep me calm and thankful. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, in the West and in America, there is the advantage of having some progress on this front. But unfortunately, as a consequence of that, people sort of forget that in other parts of the world, the situation remains barbaric. Barbaric is really not even an adequate word. It's like it's apology to the barbarians, right? It's just hideous, the sorts of things that happen. Which isn't, by the way, as I'm sure you appreciate, to suggest that everything's like hunky dory and rainbows and unicorns here.
Right, because 3 out of 4 women in the United States of America are sexually abused.
Right. So it's a
So,
question of
so that's what so I guess I think that's what my brother was trying to express. He's also in the military. So he's kind of he said very humbly that, I was sitting at dinner, I was like, well, men have it easier than women. And my dad was like, no, 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 that's not true. My brother was very humbly like, yes, we do. He's in the military, you know what I mean? So I kind of like let that wash over, and just with that little realization, like I can't imagine what he sees in regards to gender equality, being in the military. So I appreciated him saying that because he has that take um, in that reality, and I think he's a very strong and intelligent person. But yeah, I mean, and thank you for saying that you appreciate intelligent women. I've never had a problem. You know what I mean. But yeah, I
I mean,
do.
it's. I just wanted to add maybe something else. Sorry.
Sure, sure, of course.
just that there's another kind of like paradox where um, I think that the situation with respect to like masculine identity at
Hmm.
this time in our culture it's a bit bizarre because there is a disconnect from the patriarchal uh, background historically, right? Patriarchy is still here, present, okay, but it's sort of analogous to how with slavery it still exists, but nobody says slavery is okay. I mean, or very few people will say that, right? Um, so there's like a victory there, at least in terms of what's acknowledged in the discourse. Whereas if you look at literature like 1815, there are people who would actively apologize for slavery and even argue that slavery was necessary for the functioning of civilization. Which, you say that, and it just sounds like just ludicrous to our ear, and that's positive. And by analogy, with the notion of patriarchy, I think you will find very few people actively arguing for patriarchy, right? There's an acknowledgement that we need to move, at least here in the West, there's an
Well,
acknowledgement
you have hip hop, you have Playboy, you have Maxim, you have GQ, you have
right, right.
ESPN, you have, you know what I mean?
But you see, if you look at I'm not saying that
Sure, 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 sure,
patriarchy
sure.
is dominant, but I'm saying that it's no longer it no longer has the status of being morally
Cool.
condoned or
Like the bro, is not cool, right?
right. So there's like a breakdown in the authority that it had enjoyed until relatively recent in history. And
Well,
so,
I have to
where,
think about that.
where I'm going with it is that as a consequence of that breakdown or that attenuation, that weakening, that dampening of patriarchy's authority.
Hmm.
Like, have you seen that Geico commercial? There's a Geico. It's not Geico. It's a Progressive commercial where they have a stereotypical ad man from the '60s talking about how Flo, who's like the representative of, he wants to know, like, where is your husband? Why are you acting
Hmm.
so uppity and so forth? And he's obviously being mocked, right?
Right.
But if it was 1965 or something
Sure,
like
sure,
that, people would have taken that sort of thing. It wouldn't have been an obvious mockery, right?
sure.
So is there's a kickback, there's a response to the fact that you
Sure.
have a new situation, and so certain people then become attracted to this hyper ersatz or fake masculinity, which is kind of like grotesque and aggressive, and
Sure.
this is what you find voiced, overly sexualized in publications like Maxim or Playboy, or Playboy is kind of a funny case
I don't know if you've
because
heard this story. I've been telling this
uh,
story about writing for Playboy. I think I'm going to leave it out for this show. You can, because I talk about it a lot.
the,
What city are you in, by the way?
I'm in Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. I was saying you should. I was going to say you should come to my book reading, but we're not coming to Cincinnati yet. But what were you going to say about Maxim and Playboy?
Well, what's funny about those publications is if you look at them, oftentimes right along the side with the sexualization of women and so forth, and the sort of problematic features, to put it in an understated fashion, of those publications, you often have lip service to feminism and talking about feminine being the empowerment of the feminine, and even like with Playboy, you look at the sort of they've had some very progressive writers over the years,
Sure.
and
I talk about
it's
it all the time. James Baldwin and Jack Kerouac and Joan Didion and all types of people have written for Playboy, and interviews with Nixon and John Lennon and Yoko Ono. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Um, in regards to Playboy, because I started out as a model. I am a model. I don't have a problem with that. I think the freedom in Playboy is the women making the free choice to do that. I'm not gonna say we're not gonna go into pornography because that's just a whole different thing. But Playboy has decided recently to stop publishing fully nude pictorials. Pictorials, is
I
that the
wasn't.
word? Pictorials.
Yeah, I wasn't
Um,
aware of that.
yeah, they've decided to stop doing that, and I think they're going to do maybe topless or suggestive. But you are right. I was a little guarded when you were saying, that there has been strides in the patriarchy, but I think my whole point and my persona and my art is based on the progression of the diminishing patriarchy. Now that I'm thinking about it, being this intelligent black woman on Zero Books, this is a leftist, Marxist, highly brainy, intellectual publisher. You know what I'm saying? That looks into pop culture and science and feminism and all types of things. So I am honored that people actually, again, a young black woman getting to be smart and nobody and people take me seriously, it means a lot to me because I know how hard it is even in 2015 for a young black woman to be taken seriously as an activist, as an intellectual, and also as a loving being. A lot of women you're either the bitch or you're the saint. And I think that people allow me to be, and well, I am who I am, but people accept me as a well-rounded, complex being. So I don't think I've never had anybody put me into one box or one word. I think I get resilient a lot. I think I get brave. I get things like that, but I don't get like you know uh, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe a person in one word, but I feel really blessed. You know what I mean?
Well, that's I think certainly encouraging that you don't
Yes.
encounter, at least in any sort of really marked way, a tendency to reduce or frame your person in a one-dimensional manner. So, um,
Well, yeah.
well, look, so there's lots of open threads here in terms of the things we've discussed, but we've been talking for a little over an hour now.
Sure.
I'm thinking perhaps we should start wrapping it up. So I was
Sure.
going to ask you if you like have any sort of concluding remarks or sentiments that you would like to share.
Sure. I'm going on tour tomorrow. I am going to be in Seattle, Washington at Left Bank Books. And Sub Pop Records artist Catherine Sassy Black Harris White of The Satisfaction is going to be a guest reader. And then we'll be in Portland, Oregon at In Other Words, which was shot as the feminist bookstore in Portlandia. I'm sure a lot of people have seen that episode. Doug Lain will be a guest reader. Um, and where do we go through that? We go to San Francisco. I'll be actually performing, playing guitar and singing and introducing my book and signing it in Amnesia. And then Los Angeles, we're having a semi-private event, so you can email me at jewriting at outlook.com, jewriting at outlook.com if you want an address for this gathering. It's going to be in a friend's home, so it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah,
Groovy.
and thank you so much for indulging me.
No, no. Well, you're welcome is the protocol response, but I feel silly kind of saying that. I was going to say thank you for sitting down for a chat with me. So, and we'll
Absolutely.
put this up. Actually, I think it'll go up almost instantly on YouTube, but I'm gonna go
Cool.
back and like edit it so as to cut off the first part with all the technical hip hop hiccups or what have you, and
Right.
and uh, and but it should be up by tomorrow in a more polished form. And we'll put all the
Cool.
links in the description, the email and so forth, and I'll send that along to you. So,
Cool. This was a very open conversation. We didn't. I mean, I like that we didn't talk about the book very much, but I think it's cool that we hit a few points.
right.
Um,
I just like the conversation to happen. I don't.
Totally.
As opposed to sort of like structuring it unduly. Sometimes that's useful, right? But often I
Totally.
feel like you just want to let the moment drive the exchange. So,
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
all right.
Well, yeah, thank you, and I'll thank Doug for the connection, and definitely appreciate it. And if you need anything, let me know.
Right on. Thank you, Jordana. And
Okay.
we'll do it again in a little while,
Sure.
and we can start off with feminism and see where that goes, or something like that. So, okie dokie.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Ciao for now, then, Jordana.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.